This situation keeps getting crazier as a brand new report has dropped revealing some huge information as it pertains to Mikko Rantanen and the Toronto Maple Leafs. We're going to break down the report and discuss what it means going forward as the Leafs prepare for something big. Stay tuned for all that in this episode, but before we get into it, quick reminder to hit that subscribe button if you're part of the 71% who aren't subscribed to the channel. It's the place to be for daily Leafs content. Thank you guys for your continued support. But there's a lot to go over today. Now, obviously, trade deadline is just around the corner. We're in early March now, and March 7th is the day where a bunch of moves are going to go down, but also moves are going to be happening before then. And we have some updates on a player we've been talking about a lot on this channel, and that is, of course, Mikko Rantanen. And as the deadline inches closer and closer, it's becoming more and more likely that Mikko Rantanen is going to be on the move. And let's dive into some of the new reports that dropped. And you see this here from Nick Kyprios. Mikko Rantanen could be available for trade talks as early as this week, with several teams, including the Leafs, likely to show interest and come calling. If the Leafs can meet the Hurricanes' demands, offering one of their top prospects, either Easton Cowan or Fraser Minton, plus Bobby McMann and a draft pick, this package should be enough to secure Rantanen as the perfect rental player. The Hurricanes appear to have misjudged the situation again this season. They thought they could extend an elite player by being the only team able to offer an eighth year. However, both Gensel and Rantanen could easily play longer than 7 years, making the extra year less appealing. So this is actually pretty big news now. We have, again, reports have been coming out about the Leafs trading Easton Cowan and Fraser Minton. We now have a package of what it would take to get the job done, and it seems like a package surrounding, let's say, Easton Cowan, Bobby McMann, and a first or a second, a third, whatever it ends up being, is enough to secure Mikko Rantanen, which is not only pretty big information here, but it kind of changes the outlook and shapes the market for the rest of the rentals going forward and non-rentals as well.
And there's another report from Chris Johnson we'll get to in a second that basically outlines that this week Rantanen is going to have like a LeBron type decision, right, made on Tuesday or something with the Carolina Hurricanes. So the fact that it's coming down to that lends me to believe that he's not going to re-sign with the Carolina Hurricanes. And what Nick Kyprios says here is very interesting about how, the Hurricanes thought that they were going to have some leverage here because they were going to be the only team that could really offer him 8 years. But I feel like that doesn't matter because Rantanen could play more than 8 years, right? He's probably going to get another contract even if he signs the max extension in terms of length. So, I mean, it's going to be very interesting to see what they do here, the Carolina Hurricanes, that is, because, if he says I'm not re-signing or it's looking not likely, right? I don't think they go into this year's playoffs with this player. I think they end up flipping him again. Now, if you're the Toronto Maple Leafs, we heard some discussions the last couple of days that, Braden Shen, they're front runners for him, but the package isn't enough for Braden Shen. And if you look at a package for Braden Shen, I wouldn't do that trade personally if I was Brad Living, but I might do it for Mikko Rantanen because he offers a lot more. And if he re-signs, he's a top end player. It could be, we've talked about it a lot already on the channel, but it could be an insurance policy for if Mitch Marner walks. Then you could just give the money that was allotted for Mitch Marner to Mikko Rantanen. You have the same type of player who plays in all situations. He's an elite player in this league. So I think that that's probably a better route to go personally than getting a guy like Braden Shen because Mikko Rantanen knows how to win. He's won a Stanley Cup with the Colorado Avalanche. So I would prefer this move. If it's only a rental, maybe not. But, there's got to be a discussion there with the agent, too. Like, if we're going to acquire this player, are we going to get an extension done, right? So it's going to get interesting this week. I don't blame the player. I don't blame Mikko Rantanen for taking his time on making this decision. Obviously, it's very close to the deadline, but I don't blame him. He got traded on, I think, the last week of January. I can't remember the exact day, but, near the end of January there, he went to Carolina. He played there for maybe a week and a half. Then there was the Four Nations face-off. Now he's been back for about a week and a half. So he hasn't had any time there in Carolina. So I don't blame the player for taking this long to make a decision. But the fact that he's, kind of taking his time and it's going to be like a LeBron thing again, like I mentioned, where he's going to announce it this week, I think is a little worrisome if you're the Carolina Hurricanes.
Yeah, and it seems things are starting to pick up. Another article from a different reporter. Brad Living is looking at all options, and that would be one of them as it pertains to Mikko Rantanen. You can see this here. If by chance GM Brad Living doesn't get Marner signed to a long-term deal before July 1st, who better to have as a potential insurance policy than Rantanen? Unlike the Hurricanes, who are now pressing Rantanen to either sign or be dealt, the Leafs can offer him a pressure-free playoff run and postpone any big decisions until free agency arrives. A deep playoff run would give Toronto a huge leg up in signing him long-term in the event that Marner leaves, which is something that we've been discussing on the channel, and it makes all the sense in the world here. And financially, Toronto would need Carolina to retain salary to make it work. The Leafs currently have just over $2.2 million in cap space with Kyle Yarncroc and Yanni Hakanpää on the LTIR. Any trade would require careful cap maneuvering, but they can get it done. Like, ultimately, we talk about how difficult it can be for these trades to happen because of the cap. If the two teams want it to happen, they can get it done, whether that's involving a third team like the Carolina Hurricanes did in the initial trade with the Chicago Blackhawks and the Avalanche, I guess, to get the Blackhawks to retain, whatever it ends up being. they can make things happen, right? And looking at this here, and you can go through with, we'll get into the Chris Johnson thing in a minute. Don't rule out the Leafs as they could acquire Rantanen as a bit of security. They could seamlessly replace Marner with Rantanen, with Austin Matthews, or on the line with Austin Matthews. So it seems like no matter what happens here, the Leafs, if he decides to go, and get traded and the Carolina Hurricanes decide to make a move, the Leafs are seemingly the number one option for his services. And like Chris Johnson says here, Mikko Rantanen's camp is expected to let the Hurricanes know in the next few days where things stand. While several teams have inquired about a trade, Carolina has yet to receive or asked for a single offer here. So a bunch to dive. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's very interesting. Like you mentioned with the cap, like teams, if they want to make things work, they're going to make things work. You can get a third team involved. Like you can get very creative if you want to somehow make like $5 million work if you don't have even $1 million of cap space, right? Teams can get creative. The Leafs in this situation, if Carolina was retaining the salary that they need to make this work, the Leafs would only have to free up $100,000, right, of cap space. Realistically, if they kept Yarncroke on the IR, which they absolutely can. I mean, Nikita Kucherov was kept off for an entire season. I'm sure they can keep Yarncroke off on the LTIR. And obviously, Yanni Hakanpää as well. I don't even know if that guy's going to play this year, right? Like he's played 2 games and we've been talking about him a lot, but those guys can stay on the LTIR if they really need to. And you only have to free up $100,000. Like you would only have to trade, somebody that wouldn't even make a difference. You could probably keep Max Domi if you even wanted to in this trade, which is crazy, right? But I would imagine some other pieces are going the other way. Obviously, Easton Cowan, Fraser Min, something like that. But that would make sense in a trade like this. If you're getting Mikko Rantanen, a trade like that would make perfect sense. Not for Braden Shen in my eyes, right? Like that's kind of what we've been talking about the last couple of days. So if they wanted to make it work, I mean, it's almost very easy to make this trade work because, like I said, you only have to free up $100,000 worth of cap space and kind of go for it there. So it's going to be crazy because, again, in my eyes, I think that there's only maybe 2 markets that Rantanen would want to go back to. We know for a fact that, yes, he would want to go back to Colorado. Colorado is not going to sign him for what he wants. So maybe there's a world there where he will return for less, right? Maybe they do kind of rekindle something there. I don't think that's likely. I think there's 2 markets where he would go. I think it's Toronto he would resign in, and I think it's the New York Rangers. I think that Chris Drury is ready to back up the Brinks truck for a player like this. So I would think it's only those 2 markets. So I could see him, obviously, he doesn't have any say in terms of a trade. I could see him coming to Toronto, but I could see him signing an extension too. And again, it could be a nice insurance policy if Mitch Marner decides to walk, which by all accounts last week, it could just be his agent saying things, but it sounds like that could be likely at this point.
Yeah, 67 points, 57 games, and the Leafs have a leg up in that regard. I mean, obviously the Avalanche aren't going to trade for him again, so that kind of takes them out of the running for that. And then it's between, I would feel, the Leafs and the Rangers, though we've seen it before in the NHL. A bunch of different teams could enter the mix as well, but how many other teams who aren't confident they can re-sign him would make the swing? Because it's going to take, like Kiprios mentioned here, Bobby McMann, Easton Cowan, and a first. And quite frankly, Bobby McMann, losing him would actually, obviously you're getting Mikko Rantanen back, so it'd be worth it, but losing Bobby McMann there would hurt the current team a lot with the way that he's been playing and a pick. So let us know down below what your thoughts are. Things are starting to pick up, and we're going to keep you up to date with this, and hopefully I almost want them to announce that he's going to get traded just so we can have some LeBron James type countdown, which is interesting because he was a free agent and Mikko Rantanen is a trade. So it's going to be interesting how that works out. But that cap hit, although scary on the surface, is really only going to be $2.2-ish million. That'll wrap it up. Let us know down below what your thoughts are. Thank you guys for watching.